Paul, thanks for being with us on the show today. We're really excited to sit down with you. You've got such an expertise in the field of marketing and technology, and we feel really lucky to have you on the show, so we appreciate you giving us the time.
Well, thanks for having me.
So you're the co-founder of Humongous Media, and one of the things that really interested us was really talking to you about your philosophy on telling stories. And so with your background, we really want to get into that and hear a little bit more about what you do in the marketing space.
Well, okay, first of all, thanks for giving me much more credit than I deserve. But I will say I've spent a lot of time distilling. That's probably the number one ingredient in any storytelling, especially in modern marketing or modern almost anything, communications, is respect on the part of the producer of the content for how little time your viewer, your audience member, your listener, whatever, will give you.
Right.
And it's not all their fault. They've been sort of trained by TikTok, by Instagram, by even Facebook and other platforms to spend less and less time listening.
Right.
And so, and there are reasons that are inherent to the human beings feeling like they're in a rush in the modern world. And there are reasons that are just plain old human, which means we all are pretty impatient. Part of that is natural selection. You know, if you stand in one place for too long, a lion eats you, right? So you got to move. But all that, my point is that the instinct you have as a listener to listen abates, goes away pretty fast. So the storytelling that I've been working on my whole life, really, in different media, has gotten shorter and shorter to try and accommodate that. And there's a lot of data to support it, but it's definitely getting shorter.
So when I originally learned in an hour and a half from you about marketing, we were able to come up with an idea and tell a story pretty seamlessly. But one thing that really stood out to me in that hour and a half is that you have 6 to 15 seconds to really retain mind share before people just move on to the next thing.
That's absolutely right. Well, it varies. That's exactly right. And I want to put it in context. Video abandonment points, since I focus primarily on video, but storytelling with the same principles, right? But storytelling in general, if you're going to respect, like I said, people's short attention span, and then embrace the data that tells you exactly how short, yes, the first video abandonment point for most people watching any video that anybody makes is at 3 seconds. Meaning, at about 3 seconds, they start getting itchy. They're like, I gotta go wash the dishes. I got to go feed the dog. I got to go pick up the kids. Whatever the impulse is and the distraction is, because it's mostly distraction, that kicks in at about 3 seconds. If you can do something, we talk about it, but if you can do something at somewhere between 0 and 3 seconds to keep them around, they'll stick around till about 6.
So when you have a business that you're working with and it's not the most glamorous business, how do you create a story within 3 seconds for something that doesn't have a lot of spark to it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Depends on your definition of glamorous.
Yeah.
To me, and I'm a little ill, that's why I do what I do. But to me, glamorous is a story that's not well told. So to me, glamorous is specifically solving somebody's problem, making the pain stop. That is a great story. Meaning if somebody's listening to advice or guidance and they're offered a way to make the pain stop, they'll love you. It's like passion in their connection to your brand, to your story, to your idea, whatever it may be. So if you can solve the problem, it doesn't matter what the product type is, back to your glamour idea. I mean, yeah, our clients include people like Comcast and Amazon and Ford Motor Company and Kaiser Permanente and a whole bunch of big, huge companies, Safeco, Liberty Mutual, Intel. I mean, a lot of big companies. And some of those companies like Safeco, Liberty Mutual, they make insurance.
Yep.
Insurance is not inherently glamorous, but solving somebody's confusion, solving their discomfort with not knowing which policy they should get by shortening the whole experience for them down to 3 to 5 to 6 seconds, they'll love you forever. They'll be eaten out of your hands. So that is glamorous to them. Glamorous to them is making the pain stop.
So how do you, sorry, go for it.
No, go ahead.
So how do you balance?
I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Daryl.
Okay, for Daryl, you're up.
Well, that's one of the things that I thought was really interesting. In driving up here, it's one of the things I wanted to ask you, because a lot of times people are very excited about their company, excited about their product. But when they think about, well, what's our story? Like, how do I distill that down? It's hard to pinpoint. Like, they got a gut feel. They know they've got a great product. How do you help companies really zero in to that 3 seconds? Like, that's remarkable to go from, yeah, we're excited about it to 3 seconds.
That's an excellent question. I'll give you the answer in 2 seconds, but the biggest challenge those companies have is not that they didn't make a good product or something. It's oftentimes a great product.
Right.
And it would delight customers, which is the whole point of making a product, ideally, or a service.
Right.
But the way to take a general gut feel for what is great about your product down to a story that's tellable and consumable, snackable, if you will, by the person listening or watching, is to navigate by pain. In other words, what we'll ask our clients is, what hurts? What? And they'll be like, it's sort of like we're therapists almost. Like, what really hurts? Because they'll light up. We'll go to conference rooms in Philadelphia and Comcast, and they'll give us a deck. And by the way, they're used to us now, but they'll give us a 20-page deck with, with all kinds of graphics and lines connecting customers with solutions and all kinds of other stuff, and that's fine. But they're kind of dead in their eyes. It's kind of, not just Comcast, everybody. Yeah. Okay, just to be clear, nobody at Comcast seems to be alive to me. No, everybody has the same challenge. Right. They know too much.
Right.
Their gut reaction's probably correct, but what they don't do is go right to what hurts, because navigating by pain, like I said, is really a superpower. Because what you do when you ask them is they light up. They're like, oh, well, our customers don't. We get. And this is an answer, for example, they spend many billions of dollars, Comcast, on customer service. And that's because people call with questions and problems and frustrations. Mm-hmm. One of those include, because Comcast offers communication services, Wi-Fi. How come, says customer X calling customer service in Tucson or Atlanta, their 2 biggest centers, how come my Wi-Fi doesn't go fast like you promised? Yeah. And they say, tell us where it is, says customer service person. Customer says, it's in a lead box in the basement. Yeah. And customer service says, well, maybe you should take it out of the lead box and put it in a place that has visual, blah, 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 right?
Right.
So that's a pain point. And Comcast is not at all interested in having their customers hate them.
Right.
For lousy Wi-Fi performance, when in fact, that's a solvable problem. So we'll go to that pain. And then we'll say, okay, well, then let's make a really brief story, like 30 seconds, on ideal places to put the Wi-Fi device, the router. And all of a sudden, when you post that on their help pages or whatever, you've gone to the pain, right? You've gone right to what hurts. And we did this one time for moves, meaning people will move within Comcast system, and they want to keep all their settings and everything else, which because Comcast was built by aggregation, there are lots of systems, so it doesn't always go smoothly. Yeah. That said, moving within the system is a way for Comcast to avoid the cost of sale, right? They keep their customer. But if they move within the system, a customer is frustrated because it's not easy. We created 11 very short videos that were identified primarily by how much the customer hurts at key moments in the move. And then we made very short videos that help the customer at those painful moments. And call center volume dropped by 30% in a quarter for the moves group, which means 2 things. 1, customers were like, thank you. And 2, we way undercharged them because because that was worth a lot to them.
Yeah.
But again, if you tell the story, navigating by pain, admitting and accepting that there is some pain in whatever thing you're giving people, you actually delight customers.
So then when you're creating a brand and creating a series of content, you have an idea what type of information you want to provide to people. How do you balance narrowing it down to the main pain points and then putting all your content into that specific field? Because I think a lot of the challenge is, well, there's always more things to talk about. So do you kind of take a step back and say, well, that's just not something they want to hear? Or do you just narrow in on, like, how do you navigate that? Because there's a lot to talk about, but you just choose to only talk about the very specific few things?
It's a great question. Part of what we use to navigate to that pain moment, that painful thing, whatever that is research they have. So we can limit the theoretically infinite number of subjects down to the things that they guide us to, right? Mm-hmm. What's the research show? What hurts? Okay, moves really stinks. We have people screaming and switching over to competitors, blah, 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 just because it's really, okay, great, I get it. It hurts. Do you guys know, I will ask them, what in particular? And we came up with those 11 ideas because they were the 11 things that hurt the most. So that's one way to narrow it, is their research. Another is, well, I'll do the converse. Every client we've ever had has the temptation, understandable temptation, because they spent, I don't know, $30 million on the operating system for the phone that nobody knows how to use. There's a lot invested. The stakes are high. And their instinct is to throw every damn benefit they think exists for the customer into the content. And if we tell them, well, past about 40 seconds, nobody's going to be watching, they're like, okay, then jam everything into 40 seconds. And we're saying, well, unless you want to hire an auctioneer to speak all of those benefits in 30 seconds or 40 seconds and have none of your customers understand anything, we recommend identifying the most painful things or the most compelling things that are hard to get to and just limiting it to those. So one, tell only one story per video in our world, one story. And if there are multiple features, you glean from their research, from their, their knowledge of their own customer, all that stuff, then okay, it's 6. And they say we can only afford 4. And we say, okay. Do you know what I mean? So it's a process of elimination, but it starts with, they may have 50 things they want to talk about. But if you really help them understand, it's 1 or 2 solutions for that viewer that will make the viewer want to join them. Yeah. You don't have to cover everything.
So do you just have, when you have those 4 videos, those 4 solutions, do you just blast those and use those, or do you create new content? Because if you're looking at an Instagram feed or an Instagram page, is it just 4 videos repeated, or how do you cycle through that same concept?
That's a great question. First of all, it's wise to have a new piece of content every day. In other words, if you want to get the reputation on the part of the viewer who's a little unlearned about you guys or whoever whatever the company is, if you want to really give them the impression that you care, they're going to have that impression if they see new stuff all the time. So roughly the cadence of 1 a day. Now I'm oversimplifying by a lot, but that's an idea. So, do I just blast those 4 is your question? If that's all you got the budget for, sure. And by the way, rotate it 1 a week. So you have a new piece of content every month. You can announce that cadence. And then if your budget and if the sales rise or at least interest rises accordingly, make some more. But the coolest thing is that this short content is not terribly expensive to make. It just isn't. So if you wanted to do a blast and do what I might recommend, which is, 1 a day for a month, 30 little pieces of content, or work, if you want to do Workday, 20, which is 4 times 5, and I was an English major, so just correct my math later. Anyway, if you wanted to do 1 per day, it just is not going to cost you a ton if you do them all at once.
I'm curious too, with are there different categories? Do you categorize into different groups the stories? Like the Comcast might be more instructional or how to solve this problem. Are there some that are more for entertainment? Are there different styles you do? And then what goes into telling a great story? What are the components that when you're telling a story, we got to hit these points in communicating this story to really grab the interest and communicate this story to the listener?
Yeah, no, well, first of all, that's 2 excellent questions, and I'll answer them one at a time.
Yeah.
The first one is to remember, now we talked about how brief video should be to keep people's interest, but it's also the case that, we stole from Shakespeare when we said on our website, brevity is the soul of commerce. Okay, Shakespeare said brevity is the soul of wit, but it's also the soul of commerce. If you can get your story down fast, great. But back to your question. If I were to point to, what kind of content to make, and then we'll get to the second question, which is what's in it, right?
Yeah.
Remember that each piece of content, depending upon the length of it, has a different job in what we can broadly call the sales funnel. In other words, what are you doing to get somebody to convert? Convert meaning buy your service, buy your product, go use your car wash, doesn't matter. The point is getting them from, that's interesting, to I'm acting and giving you value for your service,
right.
Money for your service. The short answer is at the top of the funnel, you have roughly 5 seconds, and your job in that 5 seconds, at the very top of this funnel, when somebody has never heard of Humongous Media, and I want to let them know, at the top of the funnel, you have 5 seconds, and your job is to attract. Your job is to not sell. Do not sell. If you sell, they will run. If you help them, they will come to you. They will beat a path to your door. But the number one job you have at the top of the funnel is, in 5 seconds, by the way, that is what you've got for them, maybe 6, is to attract them. You have to surface a cool benefit, surface a cool relief from their pain, whatever that is. The next job you have gives you a little more time. If you've driven them from attract to I'm now sort of interested, I am the prospect, I will now give you 20 to 30 seconds, and your job as the marketer is to simplify. In other words, simplify your offering. What is it that and this is the challenge you talked about earlier. How do you simplify a really complicated idea? How do you distill that gut feeling the marketer has from this is a great product down to I'm simplifying what we're offering? That's what we do. I mean, I think we do it well, but the point is it's the job. And the job at first, 5 seconds to attract, 20 to maybe 30 to simplify. And then if they're really interested, you've driven them down to close to conversion, and now your job is to educate. And you'll get up to a minute, probably 40 to 50 seconds. The point is, so it's attract, simplify, educate. Notice that none of those verbs in the imperative form, attract, are sell.
Right.
None of them.
Right.
Don't do it. And there's lots of reasons. The biggest one is that people are so inundated with sales messages in their digital feed, right? Instagram feed, Facebook, timeline, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Facebook because I'm old. But in fact, if I have some sort of coronary event, don't be surprised. I'm that old. I was there at the beginning. Okay. Anyway, the point is, though, that is, if you think you're going to have somebody listen to your whole message of how wonderful you are, you're wrong. Dead wrong. I can't emphasize this enough. In fact, the opposite of selling is selling these days because of that inundation, because of that clutter that everybody feels.
So you might truly believe that you want to just provide value. So the thought would be to provide value, educate right away. So how do you, if you're trying to teach a complicated subject, how do you hook it like that? Like, how do you provide that education instantly? You shouldn't do that.
Oh no, it's about, okay. That's a good question if I understand it properly. But I think education is misunderstood by most marketers. In other words, they think educating is telling Daryl how amazing my product is. I'm educating him. Mm-hmm. No, you're not. You're selling him. You're telling Daryl we're awesome. Daryl does not disagree. Daryl probably trusts that you are awesome. Daryl also has to go wash the car. So he does not care about how wonderful you are because Daryl would like to know what the heck's in it for him.
I'm thinking more in terms of an actual, like we're talking about real estate. Because that's just what we do on our team.
Sure. Okay.
If we're talking about real estate, we're trying to educate people on a complicated transaction process. It's not that we're trying to get customers. We're just trying to educate them on a process. How do you structure that type of education?
Start with understanding. First of all, that's a great question. Start with understanding that education is the sale. That's number one. In other words, the more you offer your customer on this complex transaction that you're trying to help them at least conceptualize, if not simplify, right? Mm-hmm. If you're trying to help them understand that, you're selling effectively. So, but now to the specific point. Say you have a transaction, or if the challenge you face, let's go back to pain for a second. If the challenge you face is that folks want to buy property X, mm-hmm. or they want to invest in property Y, or whatever, but they know, or they believe they do, that the process of any real estate transaction is time-consuming, challenging, expensive, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then if you guys have a solution to that problem, or if you guys at very least make it easier, go right to the pain, which is, I think this is going to stink, says prospect. Go right to the specific pain of why they think it's going to stink, and stay right with informing them of what you do to solve that problem. So give me an example of a transactional challenge that you think makes people go away, or what is your primary challenge?
Yeah.
This is free advice, by the way, so just
I'm thinking about maybe someone who wants to invest in real estate, but they don't think they have the funds, the resources, because they're not really educated on what's available to them.
Yes.
And so they just like, I'd love to own real estate and invest, but I just don't think I can do it.
Okay. First of all, that's really interesting. Just speaking personally, if I were to give advice to any younger person, I would say if you can own some real estate, you win. That broadly. In other words, it's a wild world out there, and you never know what kind of job you're going to have and all these other things. But if you can have some investment in real estate, what I would say is good. Rental property, awesome, whatever. But the point is, yes. And right to your question, I think almost any prospect is thinking they probably can't afford it, especially if I don't think there's a person buying a house who thinks they can afford the house they just bought.
Right.
I mean, so I think that's everybody is,
right.
Which is good news.
They're not unique.
They're not unique, which is good news if that's the pain.
Right.
Okay, because that means you know what to navigate to. That's one. Two, if you will win in this communication that you're going to do if you identify quickly ways to offer them a view, literally let them visualize the simple steps that they will have to take to suddenly benefit from all that. In other words, instead of real estate, it'll make you rich. Okay. I watch late night TV too. Okay.
Yeah.
That's don't do that, obviously.
Right.
However, real estate, if you offer a person, I'm speaking now as me as a customer.
Yeah.
If you offered me 2 or 3 data points, proof points that, and we'll get to proof in a second, but proof points that, yeah, investing in real estate actually is pretty powerful as a way to, when you get old and creaky like me, not having to work as much or something, right? If that's what you're identifying. Then showing them, offering them the 3 steps that they would take to make the transaction happen, as opposed to just save up $1 million. No. Actually, your perception prospect is it's going to take you $1 million. It won't.
Yeah.
Step 1, gather your $20. I'm just making it up.
Yeah.
Step 2, and I don't even know what the steps are, but that's what I would talk to you guys. If you guys were clients, I'd go like, okay, what are the 3 things that they'll have to do to suddenly benefit mightily from investing?
Yep.
What are the 3 things? Just tell me. And you'll say, oh, you just do this, that, and the other thing. And then I, as a marketer, would say, okay, well, which one hurts the most? Or which one do you think they have the most reservations about? Mm-hmm. And say, okay, go right to that. Because that's the fear they're holding until you relieve it.
And in that funnel outline that you gave us, like that 15 seconds to hook their attention.
5, by the way.
5. Yeah. Does that still play out in this case? Like,
absolutely.
You just do that, and then as you're going to work into more content and more education and more detail as you build trust. And
yes, and we can get into the weeds in a second, but absolutely, the funnel is not moving iron like selling a car or selling soap. It's everything. It's converting an uneducated but maybe interested person, and you identify your market. I don't know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But identifying a person who has to convert to your idea. You're not selling real estate in the sales funnel.
Right.
What you're selling is a concept.
Right.
The concept is getting into real estate's easy. And because of the 3 things you're going to offer them, and then now we'll get into the weeds, but you're going to offer them 3 data points or 3 interesting facts that they will probably open their eyes a little bit and like, wow, it's easy, or wow, that could be compelling, or whatever. But now to the into the weeds part, which is we talked about the 3 components, and we'll get it right now, but the 3 components that you have to consider are in a story, in video form, or any form really, are time, tone, and placement. We've talked about time. Time is how little time you have, 5 seconds, 15 to 20, 40 maybe, as you go down the funnel, right?
Yeah.
Tone, well, placement, you asked about, like, should I pump something out on a social media platform every day, every hour, every month, what, right? And that's placement. And maybe social media is the right place to go. Mm-hmm. But remember, there's a lot of social media. Is your prospect on TikTok? Maybe not. Is your prospect on Instagram? Maybe so.
Yeah.
So that's placement. But tone is, we've hinted at it, but now let's get direct. Tone is always, if successful in these communications, is an offer, not a request. In other words, if you ever find yourself using the imperative form of the verb, like buy, get, go, click, right? Mm-hmm. You've lost.
Yeah.
If it's we want to show you 3 things you probably didn't know existed. It has nothing to do with how amazing your product is yet. Yeah. That's attract.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Simplify. Simplify is, probably in your case, they're probably what we do here at Commercial Real Estate Inc. is we actually make the process 20 minutes long. We're simplifying, and I'm also going to simplify for the audience. If I'm Commercial Real Estate Inc., I'm going to simplify for the audience exactly what we do, and that's the art, right? Simplify. Yeah. Henry David Thoreau said that 150 years ago, so I didn't. But the point is, it's simplify. Then educate. Okay, you're going to do A, B, and C, and that's it. So you've just made it, back to the tone, offer. Do not ask them to do anything. Give them things. And ironically, it is so rare, and I cannot believe how rare it is. We serve major marketers with gazillion-dollar budgets, and they are still calling their agencies of record, spending $100,000 on 30 seconds, and that's going to appear once, maybe. And in that 30-second message, it's, we're the greatest ever.
Yeah.
So could you tell us about your experience working with Amazon or some of these other big companies and how because I remember you telling us how Amazon had the same issue. Like even a company that size, they had the same issue that they couldn't.
Can I change the wording you just used? I would say, especially a company that size.
Okay.
The bigger the company, the harder it gets for them. Generally, it's almost like it's genetic. It's not some sort of corporate culture problem. The bigger the company, the less courage most employees have to not sell. In other words, the bigger they get, the more they feel like they have to sell. We got to sell. We got to keep growing. Got to keep selling. Selling something is contributing to growth. So they're not wrong. But how you sell is where they get lost. So even Amazon, especially Amazon is not one company. It's like 1,500 companies roughly.
Yeah.
Kindle Digital Print, Amazon Web Services, Financial Global Business Services. I mean, these are companies we serve, right, within Amazon. And they're all like, first of all, they have that gut feeling and they know too much, but they can't distill, they can't simplify. That's one. And two is, if we don't sell this, we're screwed and my boss is going to fire me. So those are the impulses that are driving generalized bragging as opposed to specific helping.
Yeah. Something that I guess always turned me off to marketing initially was I felt like self-promotion or that bragging about yourself, and it just felt like weird, But then when I thought about telling a story, like I would meet a friend for lunch. This actually happened, and we hadn't seen each other for a few years. We're catching up, and he's like, I'm asking him what he's doing, and he's asking me, what am I doing? And I'm working in real estate, and he goes, oh, I would love to invest in some real estate. It was just a natural conversation. But then he tells me about his house and the problem he has and what he would like to do. And we came up with this really cool solution that didn't turn into a transaction for me, but because I understood real estate and what he could do, we solved his problem. He's since referred other people to me, but because I solved his problem, I was having dinner with another friend, and telling him about this problem that we helped solve, how cool it was that we were able to figure this out. And he goes, well, I got a problem with a piece of real estate. Maybe you could help me figure that out. But what's cool about telling a story is there's no facts. There's no line items you got to hit. You're just telling a story. It's really conversational, and it feels really good. It feels very natural. So then I got thinking, how can I better tell stories and use social media to tell stories in that way, where it's not like I've got a script and I'm trying to remember all my lines. I'm just telling a story, and people go, oh, that's cool. I got a problem. Maybe you can help me with that.
Okay. First of all, there's a reason that guys want to play the guitar. And it involves, for many of them, girls. Okay. And songs are ready-made, just add water stories.
Yeah.
If they're good. I mean, I think if they're good. Yeah. Some songs, you play the guitar, and that sometimes it's just emotion and you want to feel the emotion. That's fine. That's awesome. But a lot of times, good songs are good stories. So I think it's deceptively difficult to just tell a story. I think you're absolutely right, by the way. And I'm not surprised, in fact, delighted to hear that your friend who you reconnected with after a few years started this path with you on pain.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know if I got that is a story that can be told.
Yeah.
Starting with the pain. If he hesitates, if she hesitates, whoever the customer is, and they go like, I'm really into this, but like, you guys already know, I can almost guarantee you already know what the hesitation is on their part to invest, to get involved, and so forth. It might be complexity. It might be they don't think probably, if they're going to invest any amount of money that feels a little uncomfortable, which is good for an investment, not a lot uncomfortable, a little.
Yeah.
They're worried about looking dumb. This is a challenge we face all the time. Any person who's smart enough to have made enough money to afford us they're smart enough to have not spent money willy-nilly in some sort of careless way.
Right.
I can imagine real estate's the same thing. Meaning they're smart enough to have gotten the money in the first place to be able to consider the real estate. So if they're smart enough and capable enough and resourceful enough and maybe lucky enough to have gotten that kind of gathered enough financial resources to make a transaction like that happen, they're also like, well, I also know that could go bad.
Mm-hmm.
So those reservations, the pain your friend mentioned, are exactly what you go to right away. And you don't have to refer. In fact, I would urge you not to refer to it as pain. But if you understand the problem, the story, back to your question, sorry, that was a long way around, but
no,
the story that gets told, the hard work of any efficient movement, story, doesn't matter, is all the time it takes to refine down to that very limited piece of time that you have, and focusing on the pain or the concern, and then quickly delivering key facts that will alleviate that concern. Proof, not claim.
Yeah.
So could we go to that cabin example? Because I think that was a really good one that we used in that hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's not like there's Vrbo, there's the Airbnb. Everyone wants to get into a cabin off the grid. There's a million of them. Mm-hmm. But what's the thing that makes people want to go to that cabin? You know, it's I'm done with daily life. Like, I want to escape. I want to get away. And then creating that emotion, evoking that emotion in the first 5 seconds.
I remember that question for those of you who were not in the class at the time. And it was, okay, well, if we're offering a product that there's of which there are a gazillion other alternatives, like real estate, obviously, or specifically a cabin in the woods that lets you get away, like a Vrbo or whatever, Airbnb. The challenge is not okay. We want to differentiate ourselves from everybody else. That's a big mistake a lot of folks make, because in a world, it is very rare. Let's put it this way: that anybody in any industry, Amazon, Comcast, you guys, real estate, doesn't matter. There are probably thousands of choices for average customers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the challenge is not, unless you have a true unicorn of a product. AI is a pretty good example, which is already, in other words, it started as a unicorn, and now there are hundreds of companies making AI models.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the differentiator is not some rare technology, unless it is, but in your case, it may not be a rare technology. The difference is, how can you offer somebody in very short order, we talked about multiple seconds, how can you offer them relief from the pain they feel? Starting with that, and now I won't beat that dead horse too much longer. But back to you're to give folks who are listening an idea. The question was, how do I differentiate my get away from it all cabin enough, or attract people to go use it in a market that probably does have other get away from it all cabins?
Yeah, right.
Short answer is, don't try to compete with the other ones. Tell people clearly what you guys do. Mm-hmm. We talked about this a little bit before we started, but it is not the customers out there of real estate or any other product or service believe that you guys are the only game in town. In fact, they know otherwise.
Yeah.
The challenge is, will you be able to tell them a story fast enough to deliver the value they want, or relief from the pain that they want, so that they say, I'll go with it. They are not, for the most part, people. This is where it works in your favor, the little time that people have. If you tell them a good story, and you do it by surfacing the benefits that will accrue to them, or the pain that will go away, or whatever, fast and well, they won't look for the competition. Mm-hmm. They don't care. Because one of the things they want to avoid is, I think we've talked about it, pain.
Right.
So they don't want the pain of doing research for the next 6 hours.
Right.
There's some who do that. I used to, when I was writing stories for various magazines and newspapers, I would over-research. That's what I did. I probably shouldn't have, but I did. But I was willing to go through that pain for reasons that had to mostly do with embarrassment, or the fear of it.
Right.
Which is, I didn't want to have a story that my editor bought, published, and have everybody go like, well, that was wrong.
Right.
So I did a lot more research. That's it. Average customers, cabin away in the woods, what do they want? Answers now to why, because they need relief from the pain, which is the pain of daily life, right? They want to know, how simple is this?
Yeah.
Can I do it like in the next 5 minutes? Will my spouse yell at me for having made this choice? Blah, blah, blah.
And then you subsequently offer those other benefits like a sensory emotion, like the smell of being in the woods or the sounds of the lake next to it.
Yes, the sensory, and then we'll get to the visual in a second, but sensory broadly, 100%. But remember, that is in the service of alleviating pain. In other words, the sensory feelings that you want to give your viewer, if it's a video, have to do with, we're going to deliver things we know, we at this commercial real estate company, we know that people want relief from.
Yeah.
And those sensory feelings, you're absolutely right. Make it sensory. Make it a full visceral relief, right? From, I was worried about looking like an idiot and wasting my money. But these guys have made it clear that they're not, that's the visceral reaction that you want to deliver. In the case of the cabin in the woods, it was visual.
Yeah.
So there's one other thing I want to mention, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right.
Of course.
And then what do I owe you? $20? Okay. All right. So here we go. I've found that we're pretty good at, and I think anybody who does a good job of telling stories will also work on it, is almost every product that we help people by telling stories for them, almost every product is invisible when you think about it. In the case of, there's a very, very big, widely unknown, but giant company called Akamai. Okay? Akamai runs the plumbing of the World Wide Web, pretty much. There are one or two competitors, but Akamai is it. And what Akamai does is do things like bot detection so that your system, they serve giant enterprises. Any giant company you've ever heard of probably uses Akamai. And Akamai's in Cambridge, Mass., blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but what they do is bot detection, denial of service attack defense, blah, 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 all these things that are vital. Imagine an e-commerce company like Amazon shutting down because, sorry about that. But imagine some giant denial of service attack on Amazon, they're screwed. So they buy Akamai services. Here's the problem. Akamai sells digits, software, stuff that you can't see. So your job as the storyteller is to figure out how to make visual what is invisible. And in the case of what you're offering, if it's relief from the worry, I'm just getting into the commercial real estate, that if I invest money, it's going to go down a hole.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if I'll make, or how stable is it? How secure? All the whatever questions, and I don't. But whatever questions they're asking, if you can create a visual relief back to your cabin in the woods, if you can create visual simplicity of what you're offering and why it will alleviate that worry, you win. And remember, it's an offer. I mean, I keep beating this dead horse. You're giving them visuals. In Akamai's case, we created a video that equated what they do with a realigning of a wheel of Swiss cheese. Swiss cheese has holes in it.
Yeah.
If you cut into a piece of Swiss cheese, you're going to see holes. But if you take slices of Swiss cheese, a giant wheel of it, and you push them, sort of slide them a little bit, what is it called? Shear in skiing, where the layers slide against each other.
Yeah.
If you slide those layers a little bit, all the holes disappear. That is how their software works. It unaligns the holes that are the vulnerabilities. And people are like, oh, now I get it. Did they have to be software engineers? No, of course not. Yeah. They just had to see the holes not line up.
And you're using Swiss cheese to present this concept, the solution of a tech company.
Yes, and to alleviate the pain of, which is fear,
in
the case of a chief technology officer or whatever, that their whole damn system's going to shut down because some bot got in and stole all the, some giant embarrassing story about credit cards being, filched or whatever, right? All of that was the fear that Akamai's alleviating, but they're alleviating by offering a visual that simplifies what they do. It's the same in any field. Safeco Liberty Mutual, like I said, insurance. Oh my God. I mean, one of the most profitable policies that any insurance company can sell is on specialty items, trailers, motorcycles, you name it, right? RVs, not cars, not homes, whatever. Well, Safeco has 10,000 independent agents selling their stuff. But independent is the key scary word, because that independent agent can sell Safeco policies. They can sell Geico policies. They can sell State Farm policies who compete with Safeco. Safeco's job, through us, was to tell all those 10,000 independent agents why they'd make more money selling motorcycle policies or trailer policies than if they did it with somebody else. So the pain for the average independent agent is they've got 800,000 things to master if they really want to sell it most profitably. Safeco said, we understand you're scared about the billion options and that you're picking the wrong one, agent, when you go sell to your customer. We're going to simplify and show you exactly why selling this kind of policy with us is more profitable. They were giving them information on how to do it, period. They were not saying Safeco is the best ever, because those agents don't have time.
Yeah.
Same thing with real estate, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, Paul, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'd like to talk to you, because of your experience and background in technology, some of the changes in technology you've seen and kind of where things are going in the marketing space moving forward in this last segment. All right, Paul, well, thanks for staying on for another segment. We want to wrap this up. So you've got this vast experience in technology. You've been in that space for years and writing that for a lot of professional companies and in that space. What have you seen kind of the shift, and kind of where do you feel like technology is headed as it relates to marketing and telling stories?
Okay, I'll tell you where it's not headed, but I'll start there.
Yeah.
AI. And here's why. There's a lot of, because we've tried, and I have a relatively experienced eye.
Yeah.
I.e., is this story crappy or excellent? That's sort of my breakdown, right?
Yeah.
But technology is a great question, because the rumor out there, right? The vibe is AI is going to replace all of our jobs. It's going to certainly be the engine that runs most of the communications, including storytelling, and so on. Mm-hmm. Okay. No. The reason AI is fantastic, and I have integrated it into what I do directly. The reason it's fantastic is because it takes the burden off of me of the mundane, junky jobs.
Yeah.
Specifically, I'll give you an example, and this is how it will help with storytelling, so I'm not going to go too broad.
Cool.
But I now use an AI model called TLDV, which originally was TLDR, too long didn't read, and it's TLDV, too long didn't video, or whatever. I don't know if that really makes any sense, but that's what they call it, TLDV. It's TL:DV. That's their service. It's an AI transcription service that has a plugin for any major video conferencing software. Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts or Google Meets now, Amazon, whatever that, Chime, I think it's called. It plugs into all of them seamlessly. Yeah. And what it does is, for me, back to your question about, and this is directly related to storytelling, it transcribes the meeting, but it also, because AI is very powerful in many ways, actually gives me the nuance of the meeting at every juncture in the meeting, gives me time code that corresponds with the video. So I say, hey, did Daryl say anything about, chocolate ice cream? I think he did. And I go, chocolate ice cream, and boom, it takes me to that part of the meeting.
Yeah.
Then I can say, hey, by the way, can you send a follow-up email to Daryl thanking him for his time, telling him what the 3 takeaways are and next steps, and could you make it 75 words? Sure, like that.
Yeah.
That is magic to me.
Yeah.
Because the nuts and bolts of getting your story told start with taking accurate notes, making sure that the nuance, the intention of the speaker is properly communicated back to the speaker, blah, blah, blah. It's not glamorous, to use your earlier word, but it is incredibly glamorous because it makes my life so much easier in the storytelling part. So that's one part. The converse, what people might expect is, it's going to write your scripts. And mea culpa right here. I spent a lot to me, with somebody with goodwill, all goodwill, but on trying to develop an AI model that would educate itself only on the 15 years of scripts we've written, which is thousands.
Yeah.
But in a style that we've seen works, right? In a style that we see good outcomes and sales go up or calls to call centers go down or whatever. And we said, look, we're just going to train that model on our scripts. We're not going to go out in the worldwide junky, banal, boring web. We're going to just our excellent, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, but basically the story was that Jeff Goldblum, a scientist, was going to beam himself from one little pod to another in his lab. And just before the door shut, a fly flew in. So all the DNA did, in fact, successfully, much to his delight, get moved from one pod to the other. He got beamed. Unfortunately, I'd also combined him with some fly DNA. So he started to develop wings and all kinds of stuff. That's what happened with the AI model that we built. I don't know why. It pointed only at our scripts, but stuff came out of that was like, that's not even English.
Yeah.
And this is a robust model with programmers in India working hard to make it work.
Right.
The nutshell. If you're thinking AI is going to do your storytelling for you, you are incorrect. If you were thinking that AI is going to help you get ready to tell your story, you are correct. If it's going to make you look faster, it will. You're going to get an email back to somebody in 5 seconds. If you're going to accurately remember what the person told you, the most important salient thing to instruct, attract, educate, whatever it is, it's going to help you. So I spent a fair amount of time. It's not there yet. And imaging, oh my God, what a nightmare. 4 arms, 6 fingers. It looks like everybody lived next to a nuclear waste dump, okay?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I've seen
It's
that.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's gleaming, but it's also designed by 19-year-old engineers who fantasize about 4 things. You can fill in those blanks. And that's what all the visuals look like, which really doesn't yet help you.
Yeah.
We were so excited at the beginning. We were like, we're going to speak our need into this microphone, and out will come a visual to the AI model. Runway, you name it, right? And it's not there yet.
Yeah.
I guess the other part of that is that as far as AI has advanced up to this point, it can't pick up on those nuances of evoking emotion. Like that's the story that you're telling, is the emotion. And especially in a corporate setting, those stories look very different from the Odyssey, right? So how do you navigate that with corporate stories and telling those?
I think that's a great question. There, as anybody pretty much who's listening knows, there are many kinds of stories, right? There are stories that you get told in 6 or 10 seconds on some digital feed. There are stories you want to go see 3 hours of Avatar. Okay, that's another story. So defining stories is a little false. For me to do it is a little bit false. But to answer your question, in the world of telling your story, your business, your service, whatever, your job is the same as Homer in the Odyssey, and it is as James Cameron in Avatar, and it is the same as as the Mr. Beast in his 15-second whatevers. It's the same. That is, delight the viewer with relief from whatever they're in. Now, the whatever they're in is, I don't mean their emotional challenges. I mean that corporate storytelling is and this is only research you have. I don't.
Yeah.
In your firm, for example, you know what your customers want, and you also know what hurts or what reservations they have that feel like pain. So corporate storytelling is nothing more or less than alleviating anxiety or pain and delivering in as quick a package as you possibly can. But by the way, just as an aside to me, alleviating my daily life a little bit by reading the Odyssey is awesome to me. Mm-hmm. If I love disappearing into somebody else's world, it's fun. Most people do. That's the campfire. That's the guitar. That's whatever. They want to be told a story for sure. All you have to do if you run a company, if you want to tell a good story, is to toggle a little bit to what hurts and what you offer that relieves that hurt. So that's corporate storytelling. The hurt more broadly, in say a novel that the novelist is assuming exists, the hurt is probably feeling overwhelmed. In other words, they're delivering something that they don't know yet will delight or relieve pain. Mm-hmm. This artist maybe just has to get that story out of them, right? I mean, The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald, that story was written during a time when people were feeling a lot of pain about financial dislocation. It was in the 20s, late 20s, early 30s, and they were feeling worry about those things. I'm not suggesting that he told a story to sell books. He probably told the story to get it out of him.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, because he was a great artist, he appealed to a huge number of readers who wanted to alleviate their daily pain and escape.
Yeah.
And see the rich guy get it because that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
Anyway, does that make sense as far as differentiating?
Yeah, it does. And you've already kind of probably answered this, but maybe just to underscore it a little bit, when companies talk about what they do or how they do it versus why they do it, how does that focus, what you focus on, kind of parlay into relieving that pain point? Like, what do you recommend people focus in on?
Great question. The fastest way to focus in on that is to decide really quickly what is in it for your listener, because that's what they're thinking about. Mm-hmm. What's in it for me? They're asking themselves.
Yeah.
I know what's in it for you, they say about you guys.
Yeah.
You guys want to make money. You guys want to sell stuff. That's what their assumption is.
Right.
Are they aware that there are other sort of more humane and human instincts you have? No, they probably aren't.
Yeah.
Because most people assume companies want to sell stuff. They're
Right.
probably correct.
Right.
But the real question that they want answered along the lines of alleviating pain is, what's in it for me?
Right.
Okay, Apple, you were talking about it earlier. You made an amazing thing a while ago now, the iPod, right? And the word was 1,000 songs in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
That's what's in it for them.
Yeah.
It's a faster chip. It's not a solid state. It's not, you can drop it, although that was a nice benefit. You can drop it and it won't blow up a physical hard drive or something,
Right.
although those were in the original ones. But at any rate, it wasn't much of that. It was 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Right.
And it's kind of this cool red.
Yeah.
What's in it for me? Style, hipness, and 1,000 songs in my pocket.
Yeah.
So what's in it for your customer? I mean, I would ask you.
Yeah.
You tell me now, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What's in it for your customer?
Well, I think one of the things that we are excited about is helping people invest and be able to create income that doesn't necessarily trade time for money, and gives them some screw you money. If something goes wrong and their job goes sideways, they have an illness, something like that, they've got some income that's coming in already that helps them to be more stable and make decisions based on what's important to them, not a financial pressure.
Okay, before we get to the next thing, which is how easy is it for them, which I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
But the screw you money thing, that phrase, it's an awesome thing to tap into right now. If you read the paper, or nobody reads the paper, if you absorb your news through social media platforms, you're aware of the broad national, maybe even global dissatisfaction with the status quo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whatever your politics are, doesn't matter. That's obvious that that's what's happening.
Right.
Okay. So an instinct to screw you, forgive me, but that's what
Yeah.
you said it. I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just quoting you, Daryl.
It's a podcast.
Okay, it's a podcast. You can say it. Yeah. That's a good thing to serve, is what I would say as my first response.
Yeah.
That said, you have to be a little careful about, that also sounds cavalier, right? A little careless, like screw you, right?
Yeah.
It's not pointed, it's not focused, it's not professional.
Right.
So you might not phrase it as screw you money,
Right.
but if the undertone of your communication, your story about what you guys are doing is, we want to give you freedom. But you got to be specific, because financial freedom is a phrase that's so overwrought, right?
Right.
Charles Schwab uses it. It wouldn't differentiate you from anybody else.
Right.
But if you're offering somebody something specific, I'll speak for myself as one customer,
Yeah.
a prospect,
Yeah.
sell me. Okay. I am getting to the point where I'm starting to think about, I would like to retire at some point.
Yeah.
I can't yet, but I now feel a little bit, this is speaking very personally, but a little diminishment of my energy on a daily basis, right? What I can handle, how long I can fly, blah, whatever, right? And do I feel wrecked at the end of a 10-hour flight to France? Yeah. Did I used to? No. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Those things. My point is that is a personal pain, which is I'm realizing that I'm mortal.
Yeah.
And I would love the thought that relief from that a little bit is the ability to not have to go work.
Yeah.
To not have to push through my growing fatigue. Now that's ultimately too personal, but the meaning for the purposes of selling. But acknowledging that when you guys talk about what you do is probably more compelling than we sell and we make it easy.
Right.
So then I think there's a second thing though, and this is just because I went through this 2 days ago where I was signing a listing. And it was a commercial listing. He spoke to 3 very experienced commercial agents. And he had a problem. He didn't want to come out of pocket for compensation. And all three other agents that he spoke to tried to present this idea, tried to give him the same service, but none of them solved that one problem for him. And I ended up actually getting that deal because the one thing that he was concerned about, the other ones didn't solve. So it's finding creative solutions. I think that's one thing that our team does really well is like, sure, everyone can sell real estate. Everyone can do this, but how do you come up with creative solutions to maybe, complicated problems that other people may not just think of?
Okay, the brilliance of what you guys do will be determined in part by your ability to listen. In other words, not what you're going to present, not the amazing technology behind it or whatever.
Yeah.
It's how well, and you did, how well can you hear, or how accurately can you hear the concern of your client or your prospect?
Right.
I've always said the best actors are the best listeners. The best musicians are the best listeners. And I have no doubt that the best business people are the best listeners. Because instead of going in with both guns blazing and saying this is how great we are and why we're so great, which again, customers are impressed. Nice job, guys. Listen, I got to go wash my car.
Right.
What they want to know is, do you hear them?
Yeah.
So that is why when I talk about navigating by pain, I can do that because I'm listening. Not because I go in and say, I can tell what your problem is. No, I'd like to hear what your problem is. And then that's the art. The art is, what am I hearing? And then what solution am I offering?
And in telling that story, it almost seems like contradictory because you're telling a story which makes it sound like you're not listening. But how do you tell that story that you listen?
Exactly. Look,
Yeah.
if I sit down exactly right. If I sit down in the campfire and I can tell everybody's nodding off, am I going to pull out a ballad? No, because they're going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Unless I want them to go to sleep, in which case that's also listening, right? I don't know. But it's, what is my audience?
Yeah.
And probably at least some nuances, right?
Right.
And every prospect, to your point, is going to be different. They'll look at 3 other people and come to you, and whatever that is that you're hearing from them, the story, back to that question, the story you're going to tell them has a lot to do with what their pain is.
Yeah.
My point is the shorthand that we use is really middle of the bell curve stuff. Like, okay, Comcast, tell us what hurts these people who are moving, right? So we're listening to the customer through the client. So that's already challenging.
Yeah.
But my point is, if you're good at listening even to the client, going, so really it's about, like, one of the things, the biggest challenges was females in particular were not psyched about a Comcast male technician, well-behaved, well-trained, vetted, all that other stuff, no matter what. They were not comfortable with them coming unannounced to their apartment. We were like, well, that actually makes a lot of sense. What I heard, I ran with, which is, okay, instead of going, don't worry,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is in the imperative form of the verb, like I said, that's bad.
Oh.
It's not buy, click, don't,
Yeah.
do not. It's, here's what we're going to give you. Reassurance in the following form. This is what this 30-second video was, one of 11,
Yeah.
which, by the way, was attached to an SMS text. So when no matter where the customer was, they would get that message right at the right time. Anyway, the text came in with a little video that said, hey, in 1.5 hours, a service tech will be at your door, which is approximately blah, blah, blah hour, right? They'll knock and they'll announce themselves. Please be ready with ABC. The point was, we addressed a real understandable concern on the part of, in particular, female customers, that some intruder was going to be loud in their house.
Yeah.
So that's the listening we did was, well, we heard that people were concerned, but then we were like, what would it feel like for me if I felt vulnerable in any way to have a stranger walk in my house?
Yeah.
Well, we got to address that in that piece of content. So in your case with real estate, people don't want to feel dumb. Probably they want to invest, but they don't want to think it just went into, alfalfa fields in Arkansas or something, which may be profitable. I don't know. But my point is, they want to make sure they're not being dumb.
Yeah.
And if they have a little sort of disposable income, they didn't come by it because somebody gave it to them. They worked.
I work for it. Yeah.
So in your decades, sure.
Sorry.
In your decades of experience, what has been the most complicated story to tell for one of the companies that you've worked with?
Decades? I find that objectionable. I'm not that old. Damn it, Dylan. All right.
Years, months.
That's more like it.
Okay.
In my weeks of experience.
Yeah.
That's
These prime years of your life.
Yes, and now that I'm in the prime of my life, before middle age has even set in. What'd you say, Sonny? Anyway, that's a great question. What is the most complicated question, or probably complicated product or service we had to explain? Okay, I think probably almost any high-tech offering is hard because, like we talked about a little bit, it's invisible, meaning the benefit that accrues to you. First of all, it's a feeling. It makes you want to bark out loud. No, let me do that again before the dog barks. The most complicated products are the ones that you can't see what the product is, and you can't see what you get. You can't see where it came from, and you can't see what you get.
Wow.
Well, that is 90% of technology,
right?
A microchip, by definition, is micro. You cannot see all the little paths cut by somebody in a hazmat suit in some whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I can see the hazmat suit in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
I can see giant chip plants. I can see wafers in my mind's eye. So your job with the most complicated product, and I think it's probably Akamai, because there's Akamai, the sort of web security company. The challenge they face is that the enemy of Akamai is invisible. The solution Akamai offers is invisible, and the hardware and software that generate that amazing solution is also invisible. So your job is to produce an image in the mind and the eye, the third eye, if you will, in the mind's eye of the customer, of the prospect.
And I guess in that example also, if their product is working, they don't see it. There are no hacks. So like you can't even see the benefit of it because you just assume, it's been working perfectly.
It's a great point. And so if the benefit is solitude or quiet or comfort, well, you can either at that moment as a marketer throw up your hands and go, I can't visualize for anybody comfort. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can. You can show the opposite of pain.
Yeah.
We did it. There are these bots that our graphic designer created that are flowing in like little, electrons through a wire almost, right? They're flying in like those winged monkeys in Wizard of Oz, right? And in come these bots, we showed them, banging up against the wall and dying like flies, okay? So on the other side of the wall, that's the job, is how are you going to create comfort? Well, there's a lot of ways. But most CTOs who are going to buy this for enterprises understand the benefit of no bots, but to your point, must be shown the value of that invisible benefit. And that's, how do you depict comfort? I mean, that's hard.
Yeah.
But again, I think the lack of the bots smashing up against the wall is sort of viscerally satisfying.
Yeah.
And having these little meanies.
Yeah.
They were red, and I don't know why red's bad, but red is bad. Maybe it's back to communist China. I have no idea. Anyway, the point is the red's bad, and then it comes, and these smiling little bots with these sharp little teeth.
Yeah.
The teeth flew out. The antenna that were on their head kind of got bent. They fell dead with little X's over their eyes. It was cliche, but it was awesome because we all want the bugs to stay out. That's why we have screens on our porch.
Right.
Wow. But a screen on your porch. See what I'm saying? So like that's the visual that depicts something you cannot in any real sense see in somebody who makes an invisible product or benefit. And by the way, you guys offer, in some ways it's visible. It's the real estate that they're investing in, right? But in some ways, back to your screw you money.
Yeah.
That's a concept.
Right.
It's not a pile of cash.
Right. It's
more just, I'm running out of gas here at the age of 75, and I now can depend on this thing.
Right.
That's relief. Maybe it is on a porch at a cabin. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at any rate, and there are a lot of financial services companies that try and show that. Like, they look like pharmaceutical ads. They're like impossible to understand what exactly is being sold, but there's these happy middle-aged couples with their arms around each other looking at the flowers.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, find something else. But that's the right idea. But anyway, you get it.
Yeah.
You've talked a lot about kind of navigating my pain today, and I think that's really a cool concept. And I liked how you said you probably don't say it to the client that way, but it helps us as the marketer or trying to tell the story to identify, how we can relieve that and help share a story that's going to be impactful.
Yeah, and I want to say something. One little thing about that. I'm glad you brought that up, reminded me, because navigating by pain is not objectionable to average clients, although you want to be looking. You have to judge. Is the client ready to talk about pain or not? But I cannot emphasize enough the relief in the eyes of the people we talk to when we ask them of the things that are real is palpable. Yeah. Meaning, and what's real is pain, what their customers find dissatisfying. Because everybody, back to that original point, what everybody's so afraid of in these giant companies, in any company really, but these giant companies is saying something negative about, dad upstairs on the 7th floor in the C-suite, right? We don't want to say anything negative, but everybody knows there's lots of negatives.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying be honest, yes, of course be honest, but like that's not the point of my comment. My comment is you will find it very easy if you ask each other or customers what hurts. You're like, oh, well, obviously it's the paperwork, or obviously it's the, I don't know, I'm damaging my credit by doing 17 credit checks, or I don't know. Yeah. Or much bigger issues, I'm sure. But when you ask yourselves that, it will be there immediately on the surface for you. And that is what's so great. So asking these clients what hurts, they are so relieved to talk about it.
Well, you said something I thought was really interesting, and that's probably what's so exciting about your job, because when you see that relief come in their eyes, because we've experienced that, when we've helped solve the problem, and people are just like, it feels good to be able to come in and have an answer to someone's problem and be able to solve something for them.
I think if you're in any business and you're any good at all at what you do, not you guys, anybody, you hopefully take pleasure in the customer's happiness. Okay? And that happiness can come on multiple levels and in multiple ways. It might be relief from the pain, like we've talked about. It might be a solution they didn't know existed. It might be a financial. Tool that they just didn't know was available to them. That is a law, or what's it called? 1031 exchange. Is that? Yeah. A 1031 exchange is a thing I didn't know about. Well, to make a very long story very short, which is my job, that 1031 exchange saved me $100,000.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not rolling in it, but $100,000 means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And also it wasn't going to the state or the feds, which all legal taxes should go to them. But if there's something that is legal that you can avoid paying that,
right? Yep.
Because that's part of the tax structure, then awesome.
Yeah.
My point is that is like, wow, somebody just showed me something. If you find pleasure in helping people find a way to those benefits, they're going to love you forever, especially if you simplify what you're offering them.
Yeah. We probably should have started with this, and I know we're just about out of time, but I'm really curious because of what you've told us today. How did you kind of get into this line of work, and at what point in your career did you go, wow, I love this. This is what I want to do?
Okay. I was about to go to the SATs. I was 16 years old in the mailroom of the high school where I went. And I had written a story. I wrote for the school newspaper. I liked writing. I loved writing. But the reason I liked writing was much more transactional, I think, than most average writers, I think. In other words, I loved when somebody came up and said, that was an awesome story, or that was the worst thing ever, or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was a dialogue that came from an art I liked. The art I liked was writing.
Yeah.
But most writing is anonymous. I mean, you write a book and it goes out there. You don't see most readers reading. So the pleasure to me in the reaction of mostly pleasure of those in front of me from the thing I was doing got me going. So I also found that more and more when I just found a lot of things fascinating. I was a curious person, I guess.
Yeah.
And the ability to tell somebody about it before they got bored and left was fun.
Yeah.
And then that writing got refined. I started writing I ended up doing copywriting at an ad agency in New York. My first job, I actually did this because I liked it, which should give you a sense of, you should probably ignore everything I've said over the last hour. But anyway, I asked first, because I was junior deputy assistant copywriter, right? They didn't even acknowledge my presence. It was embarrassing, whatever. Yeah. And I told them, please give me the ads none of the copywriters want to write. Tell me what they don't want. And I was like, okay, here's one. A third of a page ad in the Wall Street Journal. That's where it's going to appear. They bought a third of a page. It's a column. It's a long column, and it's sort of a tabloid size thing. So it's a big, long thing. And it was AT&T was offering a service for golfers to call in and get tips. AT&T was sponsor of PGA Tour stuff and whatever. And nobody wanted to write because the 1/3 page ad in a TV. Everybody wanted to write Super Bowl ads, right?
Yeah.
TV. They're going to get to go to the parties. Fine.
Yeah.
Well, I knew nobody's going to invite me to the friggin' party. I mean, not yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, give me the stuff you hate. And they gave me this one. I wrote an AT&T ad. And the headline, I still remember because it was like, whatever. It was AT&T can get you out of an unspeakable lie. Okay. And I still remember, first of all, that was fun. I liked it. And my the creative director was like, that actually was pretty good. And can we give you more crappy stuff? And I was like, give me crappy stuff. But I was curious about the problem. I liked solving the problem. But back to that thing in the SATs and the mailroom and stuff.
Yeah.
I still remember going on the subway. I was in New York, going on the subway to work at the ad agency and seeing my ad in front of me, being consumed by a person who was reading the paper on the way to work. I was like, oh, so if there's a dialogue between you and your customer, it's the most exciting thing for me.
Yeah.
As opposed to, here's the stuff we're doing, good luck. If you can make somebody smile at the thought of, I might be able to retire, or I might be able to relax a little, or I might not, if I'm the only breadwinner in my family, I know that it's going to work out. Or though that relief from those concerns is what you're offering. You're not offering a plot of land or a building.
Yeah.
You're offering a relief.
Right.
And comfort and satisfaction and maybe self-worth, right, for these people who are buying what you're selling.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Paul, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. We really appreciate the time.
Sure.
I hope we get a chance to do this again.
Yeah. I made up all of it, so I hope it.
No, it sounds like a great story.
Oh, good. Yeah. And that in the end, really, that's all that matters, right? Okay. Anyway, thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
デレタ飛ばボカレボカレアップアップアップアップアップアップドライブーバーあははラスパラゴー